Hello, everyone. This is Brendan Kenny. I'm going to deliver imperfectly the Pope's homily in English, just because on the radio, at least what I was hearing, it was a translation, which, again, if you don't speak Spanish, it's a little annoying because you're waiting for the translator to say it, and it's not delivered really with any oomph. Not saying it's going to be perfect. I haven't really had a chance to practice, but it's a great homily, and it'll give you an opportunity to maybe hear it. So here goes, imperfectly as it is, and if you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at the text of it right next to me, so I hope it's not too distracting. At the very beginning, he had an aside that he added, I shouldn't say aside, dealing with the stampede in Mecca. I have today two sentiments for my Muslim brothers and sisters. Firstly, my greetings as they celebrate today the Feast of Sacrifice. I would have wished my greeting to be warmer. The second sentiment is my closeness due to the tragedy that your people have suffered today in Mecca. In these moments of prayer, I unite myself and we unite ourselves in prayer to God our Father, all-powerful and merciful. Let us listen to the apostle. There is a cause for rejoicing here, although you may have for a time to suffer the distress of many trials. 1 Peter 1-6. These words remind us of something essential. Our vocation is to be lived with joy. This beautiful cathedral of St. Patrick, built up over many years through the sacrifices of many men and women, can serve as a symbol of the work of generations of American priests and religious and lay faithful who helped build up the church in the United States. In the field of education alone, how many priests and religious in this country played a central role, assisting parents in handing on to their children the food that nourishes them for life? Many did so at the cost of extraordinary sacrifice and with heroic charity. I think, for example, of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, who founded the first free Catholic school for girls in America, or St. John Newman, the founder of the first system of Catholic education in the United States. This evening, my brothers and sisters, I have come to join you in prayer that our vocations will continue to build up this great edifice of God's kingdom in this country. I know that as a Presbyterian in the midst of God's people, you suffered greatly in the not distant past by having to bear the shame of some of your brothers who harmed and scandalized the church in the most vulnerable of her members. In the words of the book of Revelation, I know well that you have come forth from the great tribulation. Revelation 7:14. I accompany you at this time of pain and difficulty, and I thank God for your faithful service to his people, in the hope of helping you to persevere on the path of fidelity to Jesus Christ. I would like to offer you two brief reflections. The first concerns a spirit of gratitude. The joy of men and women who love God attracts others to him. Priests and religious are called to find and radiate lasting satisfaction in their vocations. Joy springs from a grateful heart. Truly, we've received much, so many graces, so many blessings, and we rejoice in this. Truly, it will do us good to think back on our lives with the grace of remembrance. Remembrance of when we were first called. Remembrance of the road traveled. Remembrance of graces received. And above all, remembrance of our encounter with Jesus Christ so often along the way. Remembrance of the amazement which our encounter with Jesus Christ awakens in our heart. Brothers and sisters consecrated and priests, to seek the grace of remembrance so as to grow in the spirit of gratitude. Perhaps we need to ask ourselves, are we good at counting our blessings, or have I forgotten them? A second area is the spirit of hard work. A grateful heart is spontaneously impelled to serve the Lord and to find expression in a life of commitment to our work. Once we have come to realize how much God has given us, a life of self-sacrifice, of working for him and for others, becomes a privileged way of responding to his great love. Yet, if we are honest, we know how easily this spirit of generous self-sacrifice can be dampened. There are a couple of ways that this can happen. Excuse me. Forgive me, I missed where I was. There are a couple ways that this can happen. Both are examples of that spiritual worldliness, which weakens our commitment as women and men consecrated to serve and diminishes the wonder, the awe of our first encounter with Christ. We get caught up measuring the value of our apostolic works by the standards of efficiency, good management, and outward success which govern the business world. Not that these things are unimportant. We have been entrusted with a great responsibility, and God's people rightly expect accountability from us. But the true worth of our apostolate is measured by the value it has in God's eyes. To see and evaluate things from God's perspective calls for constant conversion in the first days and years of our vocation, and, need I say, great humility. The cross shows us a different way of measuring success. Ours is to plant the seeds. God sees to the fruit of our labors. And if at times our efforts and work seem to fail and produce no fruit, we need to remember that we are followers of Jesus, and his life, humanly speaking, ended in failure, the failure of the cross. Another danger comes when we become jealous of our free time, when we think that surrounding ourselves with worldly comforts will help us serve better. The problem with this reasoning is that it can blunt the power of God's daily call to conversion, to encounter with him, slowly but surely. It diminishes our spirit of sacrifice, renunciation, and hard work. It also alienates people who suffer material poverty and are forced to make greater sacrifices than ourselves. Rest is needed, as are moments of leisure and self-enrichment. But we need to know how to rest in a way that deepens our desire to serve with generosity. Closeness to the poor, the refugee, the immigrant, the sick, the exploited, the elderly living alone, prisoners, and all God's other poor will teach us a different way of resting, one which is more Christian and generous. Gratitude and hard work. These are two pillars of the spiritual life which I have wanted to share with you this evening. I thank you for prayers and work and the daily sacrifices you make in the various areas of your apostolate. Many of those are known only to God, but they bear rich fruit for the life of the church. In a special way, I want to express my esteem and gratitude to the religious women of the United States. What would the church be without you? Women of strength, fighters, with that spirit of courage that puts you in the front lines in the proclamation of the gospel. To you, religious women, sisters and mothers of this people, I wish to say thank you, a big thank you, and to tell you that I love you very much. I know that many of you are in the front lines in meeting the challenges of adapting to an evolving pastoral landscape. Whatever difficulties and trials you face, I ask you, like St. Peter, to be at peace and to respond to them as Christ did. He thanked the Father, took up his cross, and looked forward. Dear brothers and sisters, in a few moments we will sing the Magnificat. Let us commend to Our Lady the work we have been entrusted to do. Let us join her in thanking God for the great things he has done and for the great things he will continue to do in us and in those whom we have the privilege to serve. Amen. So I hope you don't think it was untoward for me to read the Pope's homily, but I wished I had heard it in English translation when I was listening to it on the radio. So I hope if you weren't able to read it, or maybe you heard it in the halting translation, it gave you a sense more of what he was getting at. It was very beautiful, I hope, for everyone, regardless of your faith or where you are in life. And you'll probably see me on Periscope talking about cereal. Have a good one.